Today we're going to teach you how to tackle the Black Legion on this awesome possessed model I found in my bits box. So we're going to go into it, guys. We're also going to show you all of the stuff you need to know, including black, gold trim, highlighting black, and all the little details in between. Let's get into it, guys. So to start off with, guys, just started off with a black spray. We used Humbrol originally, but we used Vallejo heavy charcoal to fill in all the black areas again. Now this is like not quite black, it's a really dark grey, which is going to give us a really good base tone to work from with black. Now black, obviously you want to read as black, so you want the recesses to be really dark and read as black. The highlights we're going to be using is slightly different hue. We use slightly turquoise to highlight this. This is going to give some visual interest and give an interesting tone to the black armor rather than just straight up grey. Speaking of which, we're going to go on to the Vallejo metal color. So we're going to go Vallejo metal color gold and antique gold. This is a pigment powder. Now a lot of people get worried about using pigment powders, especially with the metallics. But it's as simple as adding some pigment powder to the gold paint, which we're going to be adding here. The coverage on the metal, the gold paint is pretty good anyway. With the Vallejo pigment powder as well, it makes that really antique gold look. And once it's mixed together, it goes over really smooth, as you guys can see. So this is basically one coat. In some areas you might need to use two if it gets a bit thin on the wet palette or something like that, but it goes over really smooth, and it goes over absolutely beautifully. Now this is just one coat just going over, but you have to be just very careful going around all the trim, guys. Unfortunately, this is just the step of the process which is going to be slightly unpleasant for some people, as some people do not like painting trim, including me. But once this process is done, that is the main bulk of the work done on this model. Just take your time, go around, make sure it's smooth, and if you do any little mistakes, just touch it up with that first black colour that you did originally. Next, we're going to deep Azure. This is going to be the turquoise colour I was on about. We're going to mix this in with our heavy charcoal and make like a mid-tone in between, and we're going to thin this down nicely to make sure we get a nice thin, nice smooth coat. So we're going to highlight this up, go around all the areas that you think that the light will reflect, and make sure that you go around all the edges as well. This is going to be more of like a bulky highlight. This isn't here to really establish the very edges. This is just your first pass of the highlight here. So once you go around all the areas, and also on the actual arm panel itself, feel free to create some textures and some little scratches. You're going to fill in those areas as well with a lighter color afterwards to really push the contrast on these areas. So yeah, let's go around all the arm panels, just take your time, make it look nice. Next, you're going to add some ice yellow to that mix we have made. We're not going to go straight to the deep Azure here because it goes a little bit green, so you want to just mix it straight in with the ice yellow, making like a mid-tone, and this is to put our next highlight on the areas. So the areas that we did before, we did bulkily. This one we're going to do even thinner, just trying to leave some of that other highlight color showing to try and push the contrast on the black armor. Now I'm being very deliberate and very thin here, and trying to keep these lines very thin and trying to create some textures on some more of the blank areas to provoke some interest. Now on the actual arm panels themselves, on this possessed model, luckily there are little ridges that I can actually follow, and this should use some highlights on. So it's actually quite easy to do that. But you can do this similar effect on a normal Chaos Space Marine, and just literally create the texture yourself and just highlight inside the old highlights that you did before. And finally, we're going to add a final little bit more ice yellow, and this one's going to be very sparing, nice little dots, very thin highlights on very specific areas. We're not going to be focusing on, every single part of the model here. It's very important to understand that you don't need to highlight every part of the model for the final highlight. It's just the areas that you want to provoke interest. So I did do a little tiny line here on the butt panel because I think that looks good. I think that'll be really, push the contrast on that area, because I think that is an area that you will see quite a bit, and it is sort of the area that you can. Next, we're going to be going for WashTargor Rageshade. This is going to go over all of the gold. This is a really good color for gold, to be honest, because it actually gives you a slightly different hue than you normally see, especially for the antique gold look. This slightly reddish hue to the Targor Rageshade was going to give some really good interest on that gold. Feel free to be quite, generous with this. It's going to look really good when you actually come. And here it is when it's all dry. And then we're going to get some Zandri dust. Zandri dust, I've always had trouble with getting coverage with this paint personally, but it is a very good shade. So what I do is I just thin this down. I accept that it's going to take 2 or 3 coats to be smooth, and I just start going away at the bone. So effectively, we're just going to go over all the bone areas. This is going to cover badly, unless it's just my pot, I don't know. But just go over all the areas that you want to be bone. Don't try and rush it. Don't try and put over one thick coat. It's going to look really crap if you do that. Just go over all the areas, be very deliberate, very slow. Just take your time, and just make sure it all's all nice and smooth. And as you can see now, I'm in the stage where I'm actually going over the other areas again, which I've already covered once. And I'm going to go over the backpack, because the backpack has a nice little spine and cool little skull there as well, which I really like. These possessed models are absolutely beautiful, by the way. I've actually really enjoyed painting them. And here it is with about two, maybe 3 coats on some areas, just to make sure it's smooth. Then we're going to get some Cygor Brown. Cygor Brown is a very strong pigment in paint. We're going to use this to shade the bone, but this means that you have to really thin it down quite a lot with some Lamy Medium. So effectively, once you've thinned it down, you're going to apply this everywhere. And just whenever you pull the paint in an area where it pulls, just pull it towards the bottom to make sure it gives that sort of, blend from dark to light to the bone. And again, just take your time and be deliberate, make sure it's good. And then next we've gone to Wraithbone. This is going to be about a 50-50 mix of the Wraithbone and the Zandri Dust first, because going straight to Wraithbone is going to be a bit too stark for the idea that we want to go for. Again, this is going to be thin because it's going to be almost like a glaze sort of format. We're going to go over all the areas we want to go for. And if you want to do this a little bit quicker, you can just go for it in like 1 or 2 layers. I'm just trying to be a little bit more, I'm trying to blend this a little bit more because bone looks a lot better when you can blend it up a little bit easier. It's a little bit of effort for a lot of reward. And then just going to go over the areas again and just try to really thin down the paint towards the areas that we've tried to blend the Cygor Brown. Next, we're going to add some white to the Wraithbone and just try to push this final little highlight. Now, this is going to be very sparing. Again, this is your maximum highlight, and again, you do not need to hit it everywhere. You just want to hit the areas that you want to provoke interest and make it cool. So for me, it's the tops of the bones and tops of the horns. It's the top of the skull. It's the actual ribcage itself. And that's basically all I want to hit with this, to be honest. Nothing major. Next, we go for Scarab Green. I love this color. It's like a dark turquoisey green. Now we're going to use this on his big claw. So we're going to thin this down again, the usual. A tiny little bit of water. Make sure it's nice and make sure it covers nicely, but make sure you're not going to try and too thick of a coat, and just attack it. So just paint over all of the nice big mutation. I think the green mutation on Black Legion works really well for the color palette you have, including the red eyes and stuff. So I think this is going to look really good. And then we're going to go for Bugmans Glow. This is going to go over all the fleshy bits. A lot of people do their possessed quite pale. I'm going to do this quite like red and rich for the flesh here. So I'm going to just basically start with a Bugmans Glow because this is a good base color for it. Again, I'm going to go over 2 coats, nice and thin. This does cover quite nicely. So I just thin it down a little bit, go over 2 coats, go over the areas, and make sure it is nice and smooth. Because over black, it will take 2 coats. Okay, and now you can see that we've got our Bugmans Glow applied. So next we're going to be going on to our Beserker Bloodshade. This Beserker Bloodshade is this reddish wash that is really, really cool for flesh. So we're going to going over all of the flesh areas with this Beserker Bloodshade, and it's going to look really, really good. Okay, next we've got Nuln. This is going to go over all of our Scarab Green areas. This is going to give some good shade into the areas before we apply our highlights. Now, be careful not to put this on the bone because this is going to give a really, really dark shade to the bone that you don't really want. And once that's applied and dry, you can see that it looks really cool there. This is nice and shaded. Next, we're going to go on to some Vallejo metal color silver. This is just going to go over all the metal bits. Now, I did apply a Nuln wash and drop a little bit of a highlight with some mithril over this afterwards, but I didn't film that bit because I forgot to. So effectively, this is just nice and easy. This is just painting over this metallic color. Now, this covers really, really well, but it is thin, so just make sure you don't have too much paint on brush. And next we're going to go into whole red. This is going to go around all the pipes and stuff like that. This is awesome. I love this paint. It's really good base color for like reds and stuff. So we're going to go around all those areas, and then we're going to go into our Moot green. This is going to mix in with our Scarab Green. We're going to start off with a 50-50 mix here. Now, we want this to be quite thin, and we're going to go over all of the edges and the highlights. Make sure that the brush doesn't have too much paint, or it's going to sort of cool and seep into the recesses, which is going to be the opposite of the effect that we want. And once you've hit all the edges, we're going to just sort of apply a nice thin layer to sort of glaze onto the edge of the mutation. And then we're going to be doing another little layer, another little layer, another little layer, and blending it out with a wet brush at the end. So it gives this little wet blend effect. Now, wet blending sounds scary for a lot of people, but honestly, it is simply putting paint on an area and mixing it together. So that's what we're doing here. And as you can see, once we've pushed the contrast here, it's going to keep going. And eventually we're going to be going on to our pure Moot green, which is going to be blending in the area, and it's going to be pushing that contrast that little bit further. And next we want to have a little bit of highlight on that flesh. So we're going to add some white to the Bugmans Glow. We're not adding an off-white here, we're just going to add a straight white, because we do want it to be a little bit pale on all the edges. So what we're going to be doing is just doing really, really small, deliberate highlights on the areas that you want to have push some contrast, and just going around. Now, I do very thin lines on this to provoke some sort of veins and stuff on the area as well. Go around all the knuckles and the edges and the flesh and all that sort of stuff. So this is going to push some really nice contrast on that area.
And once that's done, we're really getting close to done now, guys. This bottle's really starting to come together. As you can see, we've got the awesome mutation with all area. So we're going to paint our little stick that I've put on the base. We're going to start off with that whole red again, and then we're going to add a little bit of the bone to it, and then highlight it. And for the grey, I'm literally just using what's on the palette. So I'm just going to use some charcoal grey with a little bit of white, and just highlight all the rocks, and then just go over all the sand as well. This is just nice and simple. We're going to start off with the darker grey, and just go over all the areas. Now this, just make sure you don't ruin any of your work here and go over anything that you've already painted. Just, try and be careful and just make sure you don't have anything you don't want to hit. And yeah, so this is a nice simple way to do bases. I like this area this way, it's nice and quick. Then add a little bit more white to your grey to make it lighter grey. And this is going to be going around all the edges of the rocks and over all the edges of the sand as well, just in the areas that you want to push a little bit more contrast and a little bit more light in those areas. And as you can see, this is going to like highlight it nicely and leave it in a nice little position. And now we're going to go on to highlight our little rock with a little bit of white and ice yellow just to go around it and go for a little more interest. Then we're going on to tufts. I'm using some Gamer Grasses tufts here with like brown and green ones. I'll leave the actual name for it in the description. And this one was off camera, but I'm basically using a little bit of super glue and attaching it to the base and just making sure it attaches nicely. And then put another one. I put a few just to sort of provoke some interest and make it look cool. And as you can see, once that's on, we have our tabletop finished, possessed, and it looks awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to watch more content like this and enjoy this sort of stuff, please do drop a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I absolutely love producing these videos for you guys, and I've been really enjoying the channel so far. And we've got a Discord, which is slowly growing, which is going to be awesome. And we've got our charity live stream coming up on the 13th of December, so please feel free to join us on that. And the GoFundMe link is in the video, which will be linked in the description as well. And yeah, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love painting minis for you guys, and I've been loving this YouTube journey. But yeah, thanks, guys. Much love. Bye bye.